Hello, my name is Johann Henao and I participated in the Virtual Lab Senior Project. My team members were Krista Rivera, Daniel Gonzalez, Juan Riano, and Trong No. Our product owner and mentor was Dr. Masoud Sajjadi. Let me first talk a little about the context of this project. Virtual Labs is a resource offered to students at FIU that are enrolled in certain classes which require a virtual environment to practice with server and router configurations. Virtual Labs has two main components. One is the actual virtual environment resources, and the other is the administration of such resources by means of quota policies and an online store that allows students to request the VLabs resources. The system used for Virtual Labs management and administration is a Moodle-based solution that hosts several resources such as the Quota system, QuotaStore, scheduler, and others. The Quota system allows the management of credit types, which are Virtual Labs resources. The QuotaStore is another solution which allows students to request those credit types. You can think of the QuotaStore as an online store which allows customers to select products and add them to the cart to later purchase them. The customer here being the students and the products, the credit types. So what is the problem definition? Because the Virtual Labs resources are hosted in the eFront platform, the product owner wished to migrate the QuotaStore to eFront as a module to keep all functions in the same place. Additionally, the current QuotaStore system does not have data referential constraints configured, which can lead to data integrity problems. My main responsibility then was to migrate the QuotaStore system from Moodle to eFront and also configure database referential constraints. In addition, I was also requested to design a simple database management utility. Here we see all of the sprints that we worked on this project. On the first sprint, I spent time learning about eFront and how to install the module. On the second sprint, I spent time learning about how to use eFront database APIs to access eFront data. The rest of the sprints, I worked on migrating every tab of the QuotaStore from Moodle to eFront. I configured the database referential constraints and implemented the database management utility tab. Requirements. The requirements were broken down into smaller, more manageable tasks, such as the migration of each individual QuotaStore tab. Here we can see the stories that I worked on. Story 178 was the migration of the Orders Manager tab. The story 202 was the migration of Store Manager tab, and so forth. These are some of the use cases. Use case 1 is the listing of orders, actor administrator. Use case 2, display order details, actor administrator. Use case 3, cancel order, actor administrator. Use case 4, approve order, again actor administrator. Use case 5, add item to cart, actor student. Use case 6, checkout item, actor student. This is the use case diagram. We have two actors, the administrator and the student. The administrator needs to be able to approve, decline orders, create items, create packages, pre-assign items to courses, manage QuotaStore database. The student needs to be able to view requested orders, add, remove items to and from the cart, update the cart, and check out and place orders. This is the sequence diagram for the Orders Manager. The Orders Manager tab is clicked by the administrator. Then an AJAX call is executed, which calls a PHP particular function. The action argument of the AJAX call is the actual PHP function. The PHP function then uses the eFront database API to fetch the data, and then the data is packed in a PHP array, which is then sent back to the AJAX request as a JSON data type response. The data is then used to populate the table presented to the administrator in the Orders Manager tab. This is the sequence diagram for the Store Manager. Similar as before, the administrator clicks on Store Manager tab. This triggers an AJAX call, which executes a PHP function. That PHP function calls a database API that fetches the list of courses, and for each of the courses there is a subcall that gets the list of the credit types. For each of the credit types, there's another API database call to fetch the related items. Then all this information is sent back to the AJAX call as a JSON response, and then that information is presented in the Store Manager tab. Sequence diagram, database export. The administrator clicks on Export Data. This triggers an AJAX call which executes a PHP function. The PHP function executes a MySQL dump and creates a file. This file is read and sent back as a response to the AJAX call, and finally, the data is presented to the browser so that the administrator can download it as a file. System design. QuotaStore is a web solution based on a three-tier design architecture. The presentation layer, which is the client's browser, talks to the business layer via AJAX calls. The business layer uses PHP to interact with the database and also uses SOAP calls to fetch credit type information from the Quota system. System deployment. Here we see the minimal hardware and software requirements for the client and the server. Persistent data. Here we see the tables involved in the QuotaStore system and their relationships. Referential constraints have been configured on the tables that have relationships. I'd like to point out that the QuotaStore is tightly coupled to the Quota system since it requires course and user information which resides in the Quota system database. Security and privacy. QuotaStore security relies on eFront security. eFront requires all users to log in with a username and password. Then the QuotaStore will present the users with the corresponding tabs according to the role they belong to, either administrator role or student role. Administrators manage the products and students can request those products. Detailed design. This is the minimal class diagram. Here we can see that users can place orders, and orders are made out of items and packages. Items must be associated to a credit type, and credit types must be associated to a particular course. State machine. Here we can see the item and order state machine diagrams. Item state can be new or existing item, item added to cart, item removed from cart, and item order. Order state can be new or existing order, order cancelled, order approved, and order denied. This is the state machine for data and schema administration. Data states are data exported, data imported, and data deleted. Schema states are schema exported, schema imported, and schema deleted. Main algorithm. The heart of the QuotaStore solution is based on AJAX technology, as you can see here. All of the QuotaStore tabs use AJAX to update and fetch data to and from the database, and same goes for the database admin utility tab. Verification. Functional tests were performed for all use cases of the QuotaStore. Regression testing was performed after adding new features to the solution and or fixing software bugs. Following is a demo of the QuotaStore. The QuotaStore is an eFront module which allows students to request virtual lab resources. These resources are initially predefined as credit types in another eFront module called the Quota system. Once a credit type is defined, the administrator can create items which the users can request. These items must be associated with a credit type. Once the item is created, then the student can go into the QuotaStore and request it. The administrator then approves or declines the request. First, let's log in as an administrator and create an item that a student can later request. I will log in as admin. Once you log in, you can see the list of modules that are available to you. We'll be going into the QuotaStore. The first thing you will see here is the list of orders that have been previously requested by students. Let's click on Store Manager, and here we can see the list of items that have been previously created by administrators. Now let's go ahead and click on Add Item. Let's give a name to the item we're creating. Items can be of type single item or package item. In this particular example, we will select single item. Reference is the credit type, which was previously defined in the quota system. Let's add a description and save. Now that the item has been created, students will be able to see it and request it. Let's log out and log back in as a student. Let's click on the QuotaStore module. The first thing the student will see is the list of orders previously requested. To request the item we just created as an administrator, let's click on the Store tab. And here we can look for the item, which is item 1A. Here we can add the item to the cart, and then we can go to the cart tab to check it out and place the order. Here we have to put a description. And the order has been completed. Now we can log back in as an administrator to approve the item that the student just requested. Let's go to the QuotaStore. Recently requested items will be at the top of the list. If we want to get more information about the order, we can click on the row and then click on Details. Here we can see that this is item 1A. Again, if we click on the row, we'll get more details about the item. This is a description, and here we can either cancel it or go back to Order Manager, and then here we can approve it or decline it. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. The order has been approved. Now that the item has been approved, we can log out and log back in as a student. And we go to the QuotaStore. Here again we see the list of orders, and this is the one that the administrator had approved. We can click on it and look at the details to see that this is item 1A. And that's the description. Now at this point, the user will be able to use the Virtual Labs resource. Another feature included in the QuotaStore is the ability to manage its data and schema. This feature is only available to administrators of the system. We can access this by going to the VLabs admin tab. Once here, we can click on the QuotaStore row item. There are two main sections, one to manage the schema of the QuotaStore database and another to manage the data. Each of these sections will allow you to import, export, and delete. I will first demonstrate the data admin functions. When you click on the Export Data button, the server will generate a MySQL dump file with only the data information of all the tables used by the QuotaStore. This file will be sent to the browser so that it can be downloaded. Here's the file. Once we have exported the data, we can now click on Delete Data. You will get a warning message telling you to make sure that you have backed up the data. And if you have, you can click OK, which we did. And now the data has been deleted. We can confirm this by going back to Orders Manager and then refresh. Now we can see that there's no data. Now we can go back to the VLabs admin tab and we can import the data. Now we have to select the file that we downloaded, which is this one right here. The system will tell you that the import was successful, and now we can check to make sure that we have our data back. And our data is back. Now that I have talked about the data admin functions, we can go back and look into the schema admin functions. Same thing as before, we'll first export the schema that will allow us to download the file to our computer. Next, we can delete the schema. The system will give us a warning message asking us to confirm that we have a backup, which we do. Then the system tells us that the deletion of the schema was successful. This concludes the demo of the QuotaStore system. Thank you for watching. This concludes the introduction and demo of the QuotaStore. Thank you for watching.